In a world obsessed with hustle, noise, and constant visibility, there's one type of person who seems to do less, yet gets more respect. They're not loud. They're not flashy. They're not trying to prove anything. And still, when they walk into a room, people feel it. They're called Sigmas. Quiet operators who live by their own rules and command respect without ever asking for it. But why? What makes them so magnetic, so untouchable, so quietly powerful? In this video, we're breaking down 6 psychological reasons why Sigmas earn deep respect. Not by doing more, but by doing what actually matters. Number 1. Psychological detachment from social hierarchies. You know what truly sets a Sigma apart? It's their quiet refusal to play the social games that most people live by. While others are scrambling to climb ladders, seeking status, validation, and approval, the Sigma simply detaches. They don't need to be at the top, and they're not interested in being at the bottom either. They stand outside the hierarchy altogether. Not because they're weak, but because they're free. This psychological detachment is powerful. It tells people, I'm not here to compete with you. I'm here to live on my own terms. And in a strange twist, this very indifference is what earns them respect. Because when someone doesn't need the spotlight, but still holds their own presence, you can't help but notice them. Sigmas don't chase attention, but their ability to stay centered while the world chases status, that's what makes people respect them even more. This detachment isn't apathy, it's clarity. Sigmas see through the illusion that power must come from titles, group approval, or dominance. They understand something most don't. Real power comes from self-governance. When you don't need to dominate others to feel valuable. And you don't need to be accepted to feel seen. You become unshakable. That's the Sigma mindset. They don't enter a room wondering who's above or below them. They walk in with quiet purpose, rooted in who they are, not who they impress. And the result? People take notice. Even alphas, who usually command attention, feel a shift when a Sigma is present. Because they're faced with someone who can't be manipulated by status, praise, or control. So while others chase crowns, Sigmas build kingdoms of peace within themselves. And ironically, that's exactly what makes people respect them, without them ever asking for it. Number 2. Economy of energy and expression. Sigmas don't waste words. And they don't waste energy. In a world obsessed with constant noise, where everyone's trying to be seen, heard, and validated, the Sigma moves differently. They speak less. But when they do, every word hits with purpose. They act less. But when they act, it's intentional and effective. This economy of energy isn't laziness, it's discipline. It shows control over impulse and a deep awareness of what truly matters. While others overextend themselves to be liked or noticed, the Sigma conserves energy like a master strategist. They don't argue for approval or perform for praise. They stay rooted, quiet, calculated. And that's what draws people in. Because the less you do, the more people pay attention to what you do choose to do. It's the mystery, the restraint, the sense that there's always more going on beneath the surface. In a noisy world, silence becomes a kind of power. And Sigmas have mastered it. This isn't about being passive. It's about being precise. Sigmas understand that attention is currency. And they refuse to spend it carelessly. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't chase arguments just to prove a point. And they certainly don't get pulled into drama that drains their peace. Instead, they observe. They listen. They study the room before they speak into it. It's what makes their presence feel powerful. Because they're not loud. They're exact. When a Sigma finally speaks, people listen. Not out of obligation, but out of curiosity. Because when someone speaks rarely but with weight, their voice carries more than just sound. It carries insight, clarity, and authority. The Sigma's restraint sends a silent message. My energy is valuable. My attention is earned. My words are not for show. And when someone lives like that, on purpose, with poise and precision, you don't just notice them. You respect them. Number 3. Strong internal locus of control. One of the deepest reasons Sigmas command respect is because they're not ruled by the outside world. They have what psychologists call a strong internal locus of control. In simple terms, they believe that they are responsible for their lives. Not luck, not other people, not circumstances. This mindset is rare and powerful. While others blame the world when things go wrong, the Sigma looks inward. They ask, what can I change? What's my next move? This kind of personal accountability is magnetic. It shows maturity. It shows leadership, even if the Sigma isn't trying to lead anyone. They don't react to every opinion, trend, or emotion flying around them. Instead, they stay centered, grounded in their own values. And because they don't seek permission to think or act, they move with a quiet confidence that others can't fake. In a world full of external noise and emotional chaos, the Sigma stands out by simply being in control of themselves. And that self-control? It's not just rare, it's deeply respected. You see, most people live in reaction mode. They wait for things to happen, then they respond. But Sigmas? They live from the inside out, not the outside in. They don't need constant feedback to feel secure. They don't need to be agreed with to stay grounded. And they definitely don't need permission to pursue their path. Because their power doesn't come from applause. It comes from alignment with who they are and what they believe. This internal compass makes them steady, even when the world around them is unpredictable. And people feel that. They sense the emotional stability, the calm certainty. It's not arrogance, it's self-trust. When you meet someone who isn't constantly second-guessing themselves, who doesn't flinch when criticized, and doesn't collapse when praised, you instinctively respect them. Because deep down, we all know, that kind of composure, that kind of control, it doesn't come from luck. It comes from within. And the Sigma has mastered it. Number 4. High signal-to-noise ratio. In a world flooded with empty talk and endless performance, the Sigma stands out for one simple reason: substance. They don't speak just to fill silence. They don't act just to be noticed. They operate with a high signal-to-noise ratio, meaning almost everything they say or do matters. There's no fluff, no posturing, no wasted motion. So when a Sigma finally speaks, it cuts through the noise like a laser. People lean in, because they've learned. When they talk, it's worth listening to. And that's rare. Most people overshare, overpost, overperform, desperately trying to prove their worth. But Sigmas? They prove it by staying silent until they actually have something to say. It's not that they're cold or distant. It's that they don't play the quantity game. They live by a different rule. If it's not meaningful, it's not necessary. And that rule? It filters out the noise, leaving only signal. Leaving only value. And in today's world, value speaks louder than volume. Here's the thing. When someone rarely speaks, but always adds value, they build reputation. Not through noise, but through impact. Over time, people begin to associate that person with clarity, wisdom, and insight. They don't have to shout to be heard. They don't have to post daily to stay relevant. Their presence alone creates anticipation. That's the Sigma advantage. They don't aim to be everywhere. They aim to be effective when they show up. Think about it. In a crowded room, the one who's quietly observing, thinking before speaking, measuring their words, that's the person people pay attention to. Why? Because scarcity creates value. And when your output is rare and refined, people stop scrolling and start listening. Sigmas have learned the art of restraint. They let silence do the heavy lifting. And when they break it, it means something. And that's why even when they do less, they're respected more. Because what they do actually matters. Number 5. Selective visibility. One of the most misunderstood traits of the Sigma is their ability to stay invisible on purpose. They don't need constant exposure. They don't crave the spotlight. They show up when it matters and disappear when it doesn't. This is what's called selective visibility. See, most people equate visibility with importance. The louder you are, the more relevant you must be, right? Not for the Sigma. They understand that being seen by everyone often means being owned by everyone. So instead, they choose when and where to reveal themselves. And that control over their presence? It creates mystique. People can't predict them. They're not always accessible. And because they're not constantly available, they're automatically perceived as more valuable. When a Sigma walks into a room, they haven't been overexposed or overexplained. They carry that subtle "where have you been" energy. And that intrigue is powerful. They're not hiding. They're protecting their energy, their peace, and their strategy. And in a world addicted to attention, their ability to remain unseen until necessary commands more respect than constant visibility ever could. What makes this even more powerful is that selective visibility is a discipline. It's not about being secretive for the sake of mystery. It's about protecting alignment. Sigmas don't show up everywhere because not every space deserves their presence. They're intentional about where they go, who they engage with, and what they allow to shape their energy. This creates a clear message without them ever saying a word. My presence is not a default, it's a decision. And that's rare. Because in a culture that rewards constant broadcasting, the one who pulls back, who chooses when to appear, becomes unforgettable. This also means Sigmas can't be easily manipulated. They're not driven by the need to be seen or liked. So no one can bait them into chasing relevance. They move on timing, not impulse. On strategy, not emotion. And when they do show up, fully present, sharp, and grounded, people feel it. Because they weren't just visible. They were intentional. And in a world full of noise, that kind of clarity isn't just respected. It's rarely forgotten. Number 6. Principle-driven behavior. Sigmas don't follow trends. They follow truth. Not the kind that changes every season, but the kind that's rooted deep in their personal code. This is what sets them apart. They live by principle, not popularity. While others shift their opinions to fit in, or bend their values to avoid rejection, the Sigma holds the line. Not to prove a point, but because their integrity won't allow compromise. You see, when someone is driven by external approval, they're constantly adjusting, trying to keep up with what's acceptable, likable, or in. But the Sigma is different. They make decisions from a place of alignment, not applause. This makes them incredibly consistent. And in a world full of contradiction and confusion, that consistency earns deep respect. People may not always agree with a Sigma, but they trust them. Because when someone stands firm on their values, when they choose principle over pressure, you know exactly where they stand. They're not controlled by opinion. They're anchored by conviction. And that's why, even in silence, they command respect. Living by principle isn't always easy. And Sigmas know that. It means being misunderstood. It means walking alone when the crowd chooses convenience. It means saying no when yes would be easier. But not right. Yet this quiet resistance, this refusal to bend for comfort, is exactly what makes their presence powerful. Because when you see someone who won't trade their values for validation, you know you're dealing with someone different. Someone solid. Someone trustworthy. And here's the truth. People respect what they can't control. And Sigmas can't be controlled by trends, praise, or pressure. Their decisions aren't reactions, they're reflections of who they are. That internal alignment gives them a kind of clarity most people are still searching for. It's not that they think they're better. It's that they've done the inner work to know what they stand for. And once you know your truth, you stop needing permission to live it. That's the power of principle. And for the Sigma, it's not just a mindset. It's their way of life. Would you like to move on to a final conclusion that ties all 6 points together in a powerful ending? Conclusion. So why do Sigmas get so much respect? Even when they speak less, show up less, and stay far from the spotlight? Because it's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. They move with clarity, not chaos. They speak with purpose, not pressure. They don't follow, they lead themselves. Detached from social games. Disciplined with their energy. Anchored in personal responsibility. And guided by principle. They don't need constant validation. Because they live in alignment with something deeper than approval. And that kind of presence, quiet, firm, intentional, leaves a lasting mark. Sigmas remind us that true respect isn't earned by how loud you are, but by how authentic you are. In a world that rewards noise, they choose substance. And that choice? It doesn't just earn attention. It earns respect that lasts. If this resonated with you, and you're drawn to quiet strength, deep thinking, and living on your own terms, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button. And turn on notifications so you never miss a video that speaks to who you really are. Because here, we don't just talk noise. We speak truth.